honestly, I couldn't think of a better person to start this off with. Being what you've been doing in your life and your career, and what you're giving back to not only young people and grown people for that matter in Chicago, which is what you've given to people all over the country and all over the world. So I thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Aaron.
yeah,
I appreciate the acknowledgement, and I'm happy and excited to be
yeah.
the first of the
Right.
series.
Yeah, yeah. I even wore my Chicago White tie. I was like, man, I just want to feel like I'm, just have something from the crib. So yeah, it's just and it's cool because um, I mean, obviously you've done a lot. I mean, I'll kind of let you talk about it. You're award-winning producer, director. I've been blessed to be part of some of that content that you produced 10 years ago, which is really crazy to me that time is flying like that. I mean, obviously you've worked along, you know, big names. I know you're probably very humble, but I'm gonna allow you to tap into that as well. But it's just amazing because I've known you since I think I was at least in second or third grade. And then you dipped out in was it would have been your sixth grade year, my seventh grade year, and went to lab. And I remember that's kind of shook up the school. So like, wow,
Whatever.
yeah, it shook up the school. But it's cool because um I remember being a young person, like, I think we're young now, but like a kid and wondering where I was gonna be in like 10 years. And then it would get to 15 and wondering where I was gonna be in another 10, 20 years. And so it's just amazing to watch the people that I've grown up with just do these amazing things. And no matter what people want to say about Chicago, like no matter where you've been in the world, I truly believe that we've been able to go anywhere in this country or outside of this country and kind of hold court because of what we were exposed to in Chicago.
Mhm.
And so, with that being said, um, how do you feel like Chicago raised you?
um, well, first of all, let me say that it's really a blessing to be at this stage in adulthood and to
Right.
like that's a blessing in itself, but then to also like have friends and people that I've known for, yeah, 30 or so years like you,
Yeah.
and to see where we are and how we're
Mhm.
contributing to the world and how we've all stayed connected in different ways and not
Right.
just liking and seeing photographs on Instagram, which
Mhm.
is fine, but and asking questions and relying on each other in different
Mhm.
ways, I don't take that for granted.
Mhm.
I think that is a part of my roots in Chicago. So
Mhm.
I'm JaSaun Buckner. I'm born and raised in Chicago.
Mhm.
All right, Chicago, Illinois. And the great thing about being an 80s baby in Chicago is that there were so many things that were blossoming at that time. Like
Mhm.
our parents, our grandparents put
Mhm.
down a really solid foundation. Our elders put down a great path, right? They were fighting for equality, they were entrepreneurs, they
Mhm.
were part of a real Black mobility in
Mhm.
this country. And so then when I come along, I
Mhm.
am bearing the fruit of all of
Right. Right.
and I am absorbing the the turn of media with television, cable television, Black
Mhm.
ownership in media, radio, cable, TV stations,
Right.
and then the glossy saucy of it with Oprah and Michael Jordan and everyone who was in entertainment, not just showing the world their gifts, but
Mhm.
claiming that I'm going to own a piece of this. So,
Mhm.
yes, I'm wanting the Jordans, I'm watching the Oprah show, I'm
Yeah.
watching all the TV, okay? I am watching that TV down, but what's
Yes.
happening in the back of my mind is, um, all of the things that I'm seeing in Chicago, all of the things that I'm learning, and me crafting ways to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit away from your question because I got excited.
No, that's
That's
it.
that's how Chicago, has helped to like, shape who I am. And I
Yeah.
live in Chicago now. It's a great home base for some of those same reasons.
Right. So, um, let people know just like your school history because that's always important. Because I found once I left Chicago, people would say, "Oh yeah, I'm from Chicago," and the first question you ask them is like, "Oh, what high school did you go to?" And it's like, "Oh, I went to here or there," and I'm like, "That's dope, but that's not the crib. That's not Chicago." And so I didn't really understand because I left Chicago when I was 17, and I didn't really understand how much pride I had until I left. And it's because growing up in Chicago in the 80s and then partially in the 90s, you we were it's kind of like a badge of honor to make it out no matter what your social economic background is or was. um it's like you couldn't hide from anything. Like everybody was exposed to it's almost like a perfect melting pot, even though Chicago was very segregated, as far as southwest sides and so forth, or at least it was. And so like you just take it, it's a badge of honor to like make something of yourself because the expectation is still that like looking how you look, that only a percentage of people will go on to do A, B, C, and D. And so like with you, and when I thought about like what I would title this interview, for me just seeing what you've done and knowing you, it was the girl that did it. Because I just feel like you have done it and you are still doing it, and it has not been easy. To mention, it's funny you mentioned Oprah, but you've had opportunities to work with people like Oprah and produce content and won these awards. um like what is that like to to be like, hey, I might have had a poster, or I went to the Oprah show when I was a kid, and now it's like I'm working along obviously this global icon who is a black woman like me.
So I've gone to school many times, okay?
Right.
Starting with like the neighborhood preschool,
Hmm.
that. Um, and then going to Ray School, which is a public school in High Park. That was such
Yes.
a blessing. There was some magic going on there. And it's funny because like I loved going to school.
Yeah.
Ray School was diverse before
Hmm.
I had a concept of what diversity was. There were a
Yep.
lot of Black students. There were
Yep.
a lot of students that lived right in the neighborhood.
Right.
We had different learning types, we had different behavior types, we
Yes.
had different races, we had
Yeah.
international students. There
Yeah.
were students that came to that school in September, and I swear by November, they were speaking English in math class. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? So
Yeah.
that's a community. And I think that, my ancestors, our people, are like tribal people. And
Hmm.
when you're from Chicago and people ask you, okay, so what high school did you go to? What school did
Right.
you go to? That's a way of saying, like, who's your tribe?
Right.
Or, like, who are your people? Where did you go?
Right. Right.
I don't mind it. I do recognize it. I'll
Hmm.
say that race school was about learning, and I think that a lot of the teachers there and administrators, they actually respected the students. And
Hmm.
so that creates a positive learning environment.
Yeah, no
I went
doubt.
to lab school, which is a private school,
Hmm.
and I didn't know it at the time, but that was the best place for me. And
Okay.
what I really took from my private school, lab school experience is to question everything.
That's
So
interesting.
you're not just taking what even the teacher gives you at face value and swallowing it, you're
Hmm.
asking questions, you're poking holes, you're understanding.
Right.
Lab, it was like 100 people in my grade and
Hmm.
probably about 10 Black people in my
Hmm.
graduating class. That number fluctuated each year.
Hmm.
So coming from like a small private school, I wanted my college experience to be
Right.
it, okay? I needed the fun, the all of that, because when I was in high school, I would go to your school after school.
Yeah.
A lot of my best friends to this day went to graduated from. I would go to Whitney Young. Like I
Mhm.
was all over the city and doing a lot
Yeah.
of fun things. My mind was like, I want to learn, I want to have fun, and
Yeah.
to be in an environment where
Yeah.
I have a lot of opportunities. And so I
Mhm.
went to Howard University. And at Howard, I feel the philosophy is we give you 15 cents, you make a dollar, but not just
Mhm.
a dollar to put in your pocket. How are you
Mhm.
using that dollar to enhance your community? There's like a unity that I think was intrinsic. It's not it's spoken, but it's not like, oh, you go to Howard to learn this. Like that's what I took away.
Right.
I went 10 years after I graduated from Howard. I went to USC for grad school and also studied communication there. I don't know what philosophy I gained from there, but I
Mhm.
learned some very specific theories to um, that helped me articulate my instincts.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I learned at Howard, I had a very good vocabulary in my industry, and I understood media from both a as a practice,
Mhm.
but also as something that you are participating in and where
Mhm.
you can be a leader. So when I was working after school, I had like an understanding of business and the industry, and I
Mhm.
didn't look at it like, this is my company. So
Right.
I work here and I know what that means and I know how I can add to it, but I work here.
Mhm.
And so I think all of those experiences um, helped my confidence to
Mhm.
know like what I was talking about to match what I was passionate about.
Mhm.
And when you have experiences like that throughout your life to really stand on, when you're connecting with a person like an Oprah or different actors or musicians that I've worked with, it's like I'm coming to the stage as a well formed, well informed person, just like they are. And
Mhm.
that's where we connect and where we can make some magic and some great
Right.
content.
Right. One of the things that you spoke about, which I've always found interesting, just growing up, and I'm assuming it's the same now for kids there, but you talked about being all over the city, no matter what high school you went to. I went to Kenwood, and the thing that I mean, for us growing up, like Hyde Park was kind of the epicenter because it was the only place on the South Side that had a movie theater. And so at the time, I mean, there was like Evergreen Plaza, but most people kind of gravitated towards Hyde Park. We were like the gateway to downtown. And at the time, I don't know if I mean, we knew about downtown, but I don't know if we were really allowed downtown like that. So everybody was just in Hyde Park. But I've always said kind of the best thing about growing up in Chicago, especially where I went to school, was that I went to school with the dope boys and the AP students, and I
Mhm.
fell somewhere in between. Can you talk about how you just maneuvered as a kid, through Chicago and just dealing with different types of people and understanding that nobody is better than the other person? They might come from over here, have this social economic background, but like just being able to connect with people from various backgrounds, I think has made you really dope at what you do. Like, can you explain like how that was growing up?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I grew up south of Hyde Park, even though I always went to school in Hyde Park, when I was growing up, but I lived even further south. So I was in Chatham, which is a Black community. And at
Mhm.
that time, really a thriving Black community with various levels of entrepreneurship
Mhm.
and different classes of people, homeowners, business owners,
Yeah.
um, people who are contributing to their community at all levels and even in city hall and politics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always been this like variety and range of people.
Mm-hmm.
My family on my mother's side started a business called Mayfair Academy in 1957, and my grandfather, after
Goodness.
after
I
being
didn't I didn't know it was that long ago. That's amazing.
yes, yes, 1957. And so after my grandfather got back from the army, he was a performer and
Mm-hmm.
a teacher, and he taught all over Chicago and really all over the world. He was an
Mm.
audacious Black man who said, "This is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do." And
Right.
by all means necessary, he figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm picking up on that, but it's like, almost in the background.
Mm.
And so from Mayfair, when he started Mayfair, it was to create a school of dance for his daughters, his Black daughters, and the kids in his neighborhood to have a place of their own to learn the fundamentals of dance and performing.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of families from the Chatham neighborhood, surrounding neighborhoods, and as the years went on with Mayfair from all over Chicago, the suburbs, and Indiana, a lot of families came through Mayfair, be it
Mm-hmm.
for one class, 1 year, or 18 years, and so forth. So I was in a community of a lot of different types of people from different schools,
Mm-hmm.
different ages, my whole life. And it was really a beautiful community to be a part of, and a
Mm-hmm.
sisterhood that I'm still a part of today. We're not operating
Right.
in school. So when I would go to Seton's homecoming, it was with my girl from dance class. When I went
Mm-hmm.
to Kenwood or Whitney Young, it was like I always kind of knew somebody
Right.
important, not only
Right.
for that like tribal community mentality and relationships, but also
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago, being from here in that time period, there was a lot of violence, gang violence,
Yep.
political violence.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to be alone. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if I could
Yeah.
connect to different people from my foundations at Mayfair,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of different places. And then also starting out in public school at Ray, then it's like I had friends that went to different schools for high school, so
Right.
I knew people from there. So it's like you're always kind of connecting with people from those starting points, even from the nursery school on 79th Street. I still know people
Yeah.
there. So it's
Yeah.
like a network,
Yeah.
and that helped me navigate
Right.
Chicago. And
Um, for people that may be older that might see this, definitely younger, describe like I feel like growing up in Chicago, like let's just say 88 to 95, 'cause that's when I left. Like that was just such an amazing movement as far as like hip hop was really starting to like influence everything that we did. We had our own kind of style and fashion. We took from different places of the country, and Jabos. Like when I would go to college, and all the Louisiana people I like, bro, like we have a store like downtown. Like what are you talking about? Like we really put, like most early adopters of Black people, I feel like we really put Jabos on the map in a whole nother way. But like, what was that experience like? The YBI basketball tournaments, the Dim Dare parties, watching people like at the time John or AK John Monopoly just thrive. Like, how did that inspire you and move you culturally to just even do what you're doing now?
I don't know if I've thought about it in
Hmm.
that context, but that is definitely true to my experience and
Hmm.
part of my inspiration. I think off the top of my head, it was really seeing creativity budding
Hmm.
and seeing people create their own path.
Hmm.
So we were, yeah, in the 80s hearing about the warehouse and house
Mhm.
music and those clubs,
Mhm.
having my older cousin or older sisters from Mayfair, like,
Mhm.
listening in, hearing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, doing
Yeah,
writing house
yeah,
on a piece of paper, like, graffiti
yeah,
style.
yeah, yeah.
That's, I think, part of how my creativity started to bud and blossom.
Yeah.
And I've always been a person that was interested in a lot of different things, and
Mhm.
it was like, "Oh, okay, I like art. I
Yeah.
can actually apply that to how I'm writing out house music. Oh,
Mhm.
we're going to this party, this flyer," like, I still have some of
Yeah.
those in there
Yeah.
flyers.
Yeah. Yes, I do
"This is
too.
art, this is cool,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
us, this is our people."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No
I
doubt.
don't know, in terms of the fashion, I think I've always been someone to express myself through clothes and outer appearance,
Mhm.
but it's like I do my own thing, and I'm definitely inspired by the people around me, what's going on in
Yeah.
the world, and statements. I think I saw what we were doing in high school as, okay, this is us saying we're a part of this movement. We're
Yeah.
not attached to what people were doing so much before us. Like,
Mhm.
our pants aren't tight. They're
Right. Right.
baggy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just having that kind of association
Mhm.
and identification of, like, this is us, this is what we do.
Yeah.
High school, I didn't really know what people were doing in other places except through
Mhm.
music videos, and it
Yeah.
felt like we were just mirroring that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
later on, I could see where some Chicago-ness was coming in, like hair,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a big thing,
Yeah.
jewelry,
Mhm.
um, and shoes.
Yeah, no doubt.
We're definitely putting our stamps on in that way.
Yeah, I want to shout out to David Jeff because Dave Jeff was like, I just remember being young and it's like, man, he to me he was like bigger than life. Like him and John John. It was just seeing young black men that were like providing an outlet for us in the city, even though we were probably too young to get into some of those parties. But it just was what it was, right? It was just a man, it was a life changing experience. I think it's important because it's not what a JaSaun says is what they see. And that kind of even goes into, some of my next, set of questioning as far as like being able to see a level of positivity. You talked about being bold. I put all that under the umbrella just being entrepreneurial and just wanting to have a voice and wanting to have something of your own. I just I could just hear the older people in my ear like why are y'all wearing your clothes like that, or that music that's not gonna last, or just it was just a bunch of things because to an extent like we were misunderstood. We were kind of ushering in a new wave of just something different that like will become a global phenomenon. And so as it relates to you, like you talk about being bold, um, tell me about, or tell everybody else about, like how dance really influenced your life, because I feel like ever since I've known you, you've been a part of this dance community. Like if I think about Alvin Ailey, or if I think about, and then I think about dance in Chicago, I just think about you. It's funny you didn't go to Whitney Young, but and I know they had like Guys and Dolls and things of that nature, but you were like, to me, you were like the first person that was like really about that life, about that dance life. Like, oh yeah, yeah. So like, how did that influence you? I mean, obviously, via Mayfair, that it makes sense, but like, how did it help you through growing up in Chicago and then even taking that to Howard and so forth?
Yes. Okay. Dance is life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and dance and dancing have been a part of my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my grandfather started Mayfair here in Chicago as a school for people in his community.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a place where you could take dance classes, but also and a place where you learned about dance, but
Mm-hmm.
it became so much more than that organically,
Mm-hmm.
and is really a community. And I want to shout out, when it comes to like community, I do want to shout out the people that you mentioned before who were throwing parties when we were in high school, because
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that like kept us together
Yeah.
in fun, in fashion, in music, in dance, in culture. When we were
Mm-hmm.
in high school, people actually danced at parties.
No, it's no doubt.
Sometimes you even brought the choreography of your own and your friends
Yes. Yeah.
party.
No doubt. Yeah.
And that is a form of unity, is a
Mm-hmm.
form um, of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of creativity, which I've talked about. And so those are just things that like are reoccurring themes in my life. And so
Mm-hmm.
with dance in Chicago, Mayfair is really about just the fundamentals, and there's a consistency that I think Mayfair provided because it was a family owned business
Mm-hmm.
for families. And to go someplace at least once a week for dance classes with some of the same people, whether they were your next door neighbor or coming from a neighboring town, let's say, that creates something in you. It helps to instill um, responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
accountability, and also you're doing something that's like great for your health, your body, your mind, your soul. You're dancing,
Mm-hmm.
and you can take that to other places. And there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of dance schools in Chicago. There's a lot of beautiful dancers. We have a rich history of dance in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and they connect to Mayfair in a tribal sort of way, just like you and I connect to those parties we used to go to
Right.
in high school. It's like, okay, this is the thing you do if you like it and you feel like you found your people.
Yeah.
So the dancing I do love, and I danced from the time I took dance classes from the time I was 3 until
Mm-hmm.
I went to college at 17. And I think that dance brought in not only community, but expression and a sense of history, legacy. And I learned a lot about dancing in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But again, what really came from my dance experience was the community from Mayfair.
Give
That's
me
dope.
the feeling when I say the word love. What does that mean to you?
Love is everything. I believe in God. I know that God is love. I am love. I
Mm-hmm.
think we need more love in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Love of a higher being, a higher presence, love of
Mm-hmm.
self, and love for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I love love.
Okay. The Mecca.
Well, the really the Mecca is taking your Hajj to Africa
Mm-hmm.
in search of yourself and your history and your roots and your spiritual guide.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, the Mecca is Asia.
That's what I was expecting. Black womanhood.
Ooh, Black womanhood. What about it?
What is, I mean, if I say, because I think there's a difference between, no disrespect to any other culture, but Black women are the cradle of civilization. And so when I think about Black womanhood, I think of, well, I know what I think of. I want to know what you think of, but I just think of holistically how you guys are the foundation of everything that society benefits from. You guys are the givers, you guys are the protectors. But also, Black womanhood seemingly is always at a constant threat of existence, if that makes sense, or under attack. I didn't necessarily feel like that when I was younger. And then, when I started to see my daughter get to like high school, I began to realize what as a woman, as a young lady, what she was gonna have to go through. And even as a black man, I go through different things that, or we go through different things in this world. But as a black man, when I have an issue, when I'm hurting, when I'm in pain, who do I go to? A black woman, my wife, my mother, my aunts, and so forth. And I've always wondered, like, who do black women go to? If I
Yeah.
say black womanhood, what does that mean to you?
Mm. I agree with everything that you said. I'm a Black woman. I love being a Black woman. I came from Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, I think that we are living
Mm-hmm.
and being and doing. And we live in a mediated society. So we're seeing stories, we're hearing the messages, we're being passed down stories. We are newsmakers, we're fighting. But I think Black womanhood is you're just I'm just being. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I do.
Yeah.
I care so much about other people. I get that from my grandmother, who was a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
I care about Black men and Black boys because I see my father, my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, my brothers, my nephews, and that's just being. It's not, like a hat that I put on, like, okay, I'm going to be a Black woman today
Mm-hmm.
and fight against this and love this. It's like, it's who I am.
Right.
It's definitely an honor. I say
Mm-hmm.
protect Black women, protect women.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate when Black men in particular have those awakening moments either through their daughters, through
Mm-hmm.
their mothers, through their wives, friends, etc., where there's an illumination of how fragile our lives can be.
Mm-hmm.
We're not heard when we speak softly is too soft. When we speak loud, it's too loud. Oh, I can't hear you
Mm-hmm.
because your neck is rolling all over the place. And it's too loud, it's too
Yeah.
emotional, or
Mm-hmm.
you weren't there for me. I didn't feel the love because of what you were saying. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what? I said what I said. Did you listen to that? Did you interpret that? You have that ability. Did you do that?
Right.
So it's frustrating as an existence, but this is what it is, and I'm here for it all. And I feel blessed
Mm-hmm.
to have this experience, to chart my own course, to figure it out in all ways of life, especially
Mm-hmm.
my career, and to talk to other girls and women so that we do have a support system, so that other people can see how I'm dealing with the ebbs and flows of this blessed existence that isn't always easy, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely has its joy and love to it.
Right, no doubt. No, that's a dope answer. And speaking of your dad, it's funny, I remember growing up seeing your parents, and I was like, they're just so like regal. Like mom is beautiful, dad's just smooth. Like I was like, oh, I was like, oh, JaSaun's gonna age well because her parents are just beautiful human beings.
Thank you.
I know recently you lost your dad, and I know recently mom celebrated her birthday. So when I say mom and dad, what is that? And I know it's probably a loaded question, but like, what does that mean to you? What is like the first thing or emotion that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for asking that question because my parents are really dope, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear from friends and people that have known me for a long time like you,
Hmm.
because you get these like glimpses. We didn't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
Instagram when we were
Right.
growing
Right.
up,
Right.
but you see the school drop off, the school pickup, some
Yeah. Yeah.
assemblies or
Yeah.
pictures here and there.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have this idea of like, their parents are this, she's like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So my parents, are just really amazing. And
Mhm.
I want to shout them both out as an ancestor now and as a thriving mom who just celebrated a birthday in return.
Yes,
That
yes.
what I really, really, really there are so many things. But what I really appreciate about them is
Mhm,
that they listened to me as a
mhm.
kid, and there was a time when I had a problem at that 79th Street preschool, and I was like,
Yeah.
they make me drink milk, and I don't drink milk. They won't listen to me. And so one of them, together, they went in there and they said, look, this girl told you she doesn't drink milk. Don't make
Mhm.
her drink milk. Do you know
Yeah,
how good that feels to have
yeah,
that type of
no doubt,
respect
no doubt.
and protection?
Yep.
And then both of my parents are entrepreneurs,
Mhm,
and they're also community minded people. So
mhm.
they set really great examples. And then they're just like fly people,
Oh, yeah, they were I
that
remember
like
just
cars.
yeah,
I am not a car person, but I
yeah,
appreciate a good
yeah.
car,
They
right?
definitely had some night I just remember working at Mr. G's and, like, your mom would come in or your dad came in, and I'd be like, "My name's Aaron, blah, 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 I know your daughter." It was just like they were just like some cool, just smooth, like, "Oh, okay, I don't even know what's going on, I just know whatever is going on is dope," and it was just beautiful to see, because, my parents are amazing. Um,
Yeah, shout out to them.
yeah, man, mom and dad, they celebrate 54 years in April. And you mentioned something, you talked about protection and oh goodness, I don't make it out of Chicago without protection, whether it's from some of the older kids, let's say kids because we were kids, but from the older people that we grew up with. But my parents were just such advocates for me. And I'm sure you know some of my history, especially at Ray, like uh uh, I would be classified as a at-risk troubled youth as far as my behavior. Even though my grades were good, I just, I had some behavioral issues that it took me a while to work out. But my parents were always fighting on my behalf even when I messed up, which was often. And or even when I had a teacher tell me I wasn't smart enough to do this, which I did. Or even when they tried to hold me back in in fifth grade, not because of my grades, but because of my behavior and the perception of a black male who had some behavioral challenges. I just couldn't control my temper, but what I was seen as crazy in some respects. Like I went to Michael Reese to get tested, and the test came back as I was a perfectly normal kid. And I remember my dad saying, "I just got to beat you some more because, like, what is wrong with you?" But if it's not for my mom and dad, your mom and dad, and that advocacy part as far as being parents, like I know for me, I definitely don't. I'm not here. When you have teachers or a system that tells you that you're not good enough or you're not worthy as a kid, that is devastating, especially when you see your peers that are, thriving and so forth. So one of the things I love about what you've done is you've come back to the crib or Chicago, uh, and you have advocated in particular for young people, in particular for young girls, young black girls. Wh- I know where that comes from after hearing your parents' story and your grandparents and so forth, but you could have stayed in New York. Seriously, like you could have stayed in New York, you could have stayed in LA. Why did you come back home?
Why did I come back home?
Mhm.
Several reasons. And part of the beautiful thing about life and these journeys that we're on is having different eras and being able to reflect on experiences.
Mhm.
I came home to Chicago for a myriad of reasons. So let's start with career, because that's
Okay.
kind of an easier thing.
Mm.
I have been working in the media as a producer, an executive, etc.
Mhm.
since 2000. That's when I graduated from college. So since 2000, which is a long time. And I have worked for some really great companies that do great work. I've worked with some amazing people
Mhm.
in front of and behind the camera, and I love doing this work. I love working with and collaborating with storytellers of all types to get a message out. When you tell your story about your parents and the struggles that you were having in 5th grade, that makes me say I need to do a story about
Hmm.
that, because other people will relate to that and should see a reflection of themselves. And
Absolutely.
so I wanted to continue in this career,
Mhm.
and I was working in-house but freelance,
Mhm.
which has its ebbs and flows in terms
Yes.
of dollars and cents.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And I was getting a little frustrated with that system
Mhm.
and not aspiring to become like the president of BET or of someone's network.
Mhm.
I was getting and creating a lot of opportunities just as an independent producer to work on content that I was really passionate about,
Mhm.
including doing some media work for a Black owned bank here in Chicago.
Mhm.
And so I went to the beach one day and I was thinking, okay, what's next for me? This is where I'm at in my career. This is what I want. I also want to buy a house
Mhm.
and prepare for this next phase of
Yeah.
adulthood. What can I afford? What do I like? So I'm at the beach. It's like I love big bodies of water. I
Mhm.
love my family.
Now you're at the beach where?
I'm at the beach in Brooklyn.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Okay.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And so God spoke to me and said, Chicago, your
Mm.
family is there. There's a
Mhm.
large body of water. You will
Yes.
be able to.
And beaches for all those people that might see that are not from Chicago. We have beautiful beaches during the summertime. That's all I gotta say. All
Yes,
right.
yes. I grew up going to the Chicago beaches and
Yes.
have a real affinity for that and our
Mhm.
architecture. So there were so
Mhm.
many things that I liked, and it's like home. I haven't lived in Chicago since I was 17, and I was like 37 at the time when I was
Mhm.
having this awakening, and it really it felt right, and I
Mhm.
wanted to spend time with my parents while they were still healthy and
Mhm.
be able to afford to buy a home and put down roots. And so that's what I did, not immediately, but within the next year and a half,
Mhm.
back to Chicago on a pursuit of being an independent producer, entrepreneur, and wanting to specifically to contribute to life and culture in Chicago, which is pretty
Mhm.
vague, but I love this city. It has a perception problem, it has
Mhm.
political problems, it has
Yeah.
people problems. And
Mhm.
if I can use my trade, my skills, my talent, my relationships to affect that in a positive way, then that's what I want to do. So Chicago made sense, and
Mhm.
it still makes sense for me now. It may not be where I'm at forever.
Mhm.
Brooklyn is my second home, and
Okay.
Cape Town is the birthplace of my
Yeah.
soul and spirit, but
Okay.
I'm a Chicago girl.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. So you're so humble. So let's just go down the list. Goodness. I mean, I can name all these brands: Nickelodeon, MTV, Facebook, BT, Spotify. Uh, we mentioned Oprah. You've won. I'm just going down the list like a number of awards. The Shine Award at the 2020 Black Star Film Festival, which is dope. Uh, your content and what you produce has appeared on HBO Max, Urban One. I mean, the list really goes on. I'm just trying to think. You've done brand work with Buick. The thing that I really love that I just made sense to me when I saw it was In Our Mother's Garden, which is a documentary, a love letter to Black mothers and mother figures. I just thought that was so dope.
Thank you. I
It
did
just
that with one of my really good friends from the Mecca, Howard University. Her name is
okay.
Shara Lewis.
Okay, dope, dope. When I saw the trailer and obviously that you were behind that, it's just I thought about you and your mom. I thought about the relationship that I think every daughter maybe hopefully should and could have with their mother, and just I mean, you are definitely, I see your father in you, but like I just I just your mom is just like such a it just makes sense. She's just such an elegant woman. What is the favorite what's the I mean, you've done a lot. So like what is the thing that you feel like is the most, I don't know, what proud of, or what you that you felt like had the most impact on you as well as others? Is it that? Is it I mean, what I mean, you've done a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have done a lot. I am humble, but I'm also really proud of all of
Mhm.
the work that I've done. I cannot think of a project that I've worked on, even if it was just logging or being the
Mhm.
person responsible or in charge, that I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
In Our Mother's Gardens is extremely special. It was a project that existed before I came onto it, but to have my friend Chantrell reach out to me and say, here's where I'm at with this project,
Mhm.
and I want to work with you to help see this through, meant a whole lot.
Mhm.
Chantel is a natural storyteller, but
Mhm.
she's not a producer by trade or
Mhm.
profession. But I heard the message. I could feel what the project was becoming, and
Mhm.
the purpose of it absolutely resonated with me. And so I wanted to work with her on it to tell these stories. I have an amazing mother. We have our own story. She and I are working on some stories to tell together. And so that love letter, even though it's not about my mother specifically,
Mhm.
paying homage to mothers and Black mother figures, and being a part of that, it felt like a tribute to my mom, and
Mhm.
to be at that place in my career and be able to do that project with a friend, with one of my Howard sisters, about
Mhm.
all of these women. Some of them are my friends, like Erica Sewell.
E
Um,
money. Yeah.
uh, was and is amazing. Um,
Mhm.
and then also, I'm really proud of what's at stake. And I'm not just saying that because you and I, were able to reconnect
Hey,
on what's at stake.
so can I interrupt you real quick? So
Yes.
if I could if anybody that watches this, if I could really tell you how fierce this woman is, I was at BET in New York in 2015 having a meeting with someone else, and I run into JaSaun, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm about to leave." She's like, "No, you about to come do this interview," and I was so resistant to it because I didn't know what I was about to do, and then she literally puts me in front of camera and starts asking me questions, and I still don't really know at that moment what it was, but it was like I can't say no to this woman because I was low key afraid. Like it was like there was no nonsense going on. So I was like, I kind of got bullied into doing it, but it was really dope.
You
And
were
thank you.
not bullied.
I was bullied because I was like, what is going on here? This is not what I came here for. But it
You
was
were persuaded.
okay. I like that. I was persuaded, but it goes back to one of those things where God puts you. God has put me around some amazing people, and sometimes when people just tell you to do something, you have a huge level of respect and affinity for those people that you're like, all right, let's just rock out. And it was really dope to be a part of that campaign. I leveraged that to get some other opportunities. It was just perfect timing. It was just beautiful, beautiful timing. And so I thank you for the opportunity. I never got to really personally thank you, and that was 10 years ago, but that changed a lot for me. So thank you.
Oh, I
Appreciate it.
love hearing that,
Yeah.
and thank you. And there were a lot of amazing things that came with what's at stake, but
Hmm.
when they brought me on,
So
it was
tell people what's at stake is
so
for
what's
people
at
who are.
stake was a digital series from BET News and
Mhm.
BET Digital, where millennials talked about the issues that mattered to them the most, and not just
Mhm.
talked about what mattered to them, but also what they were doing in that space. So
Mhm.
we had students, we had young people coming on, and if they were talking about the homeless crisis, they were also talking about the coat drive that they organized or a food
Mhm.
pantry that they were doing on campus or in their community. So
Mhm.
it was talking about the issues, but also being really proactive in that space.
Mhm.
And what was great is that we started in like a guided panel discussion.
Mhm.
All seen that, and that's great. I produced a panel discussion about gun violence with 4 or 5 Black men. That is, till this day, 10 years later, an extraordinary piece of content.
Mhm.
But we were a little small digital piece
Mhm.
um, of the business. And that meant we didn't have an influx of resources, but
Mhm.
I was able to flex my executive skills,
Mhm.
creative skills, my camera
Persuasive skills.
persuasive skills to bring it all together. Like
Yeah.
my team and I, which is about 3 people,
Mhm.
we were a street team in the offices of BET. We got
No
these
doubt.
flyers made, and I was like, so we're when everybody goes home at 6:30, we're gonna go to everyone and put the flyers under their desk because we needed the
Yeah.
buy-in of everyone. And then people were like, oh, okay, I see what you guys are doing. How can I help?
Yeah.
Glad you asked. We already have an answer for that. We
Right, right,
need you
right.
to put us on the broadcast network in a lower
Right.
third stream or we were incorporated into BET News specials, either with correspondence or a
Mhm.
certain segment. And
Mhm.
so I loved doing that work until
Yeah.
I didn't love doing it anymore. And then
Yeah.
I took that experience
Yeah.
and applied it elsewhere. So that was really good. And then I think that some of my best work is still to come. But I've had some incredible experiences. Swiping America was
Mm.
amazing. Traveled
Mhm.
the US for 10 weeks with an amazing group of people to do a show about relationships.
Yeah.
And also, even my work on Degrassi was pivotal,
Mhm.
um, because each episode dealt with a social issue, and most of my work deals with social issues, everything from gun violence to
Yeah,
love.
I mean, thank you for that because anytime that you give somebody that looks like you and I an opportunity on a national level to talk about something positive,
Right.
it is such an amazing opportunity to be able to tell our stories. And I want to not done with the interview yet, but I do want to thank you for being one of those creators and storytellers because especially now with them taking, being very intentional about, eradicating our history, whether it's in the books or just in anywhere that they can. It is so important that not only our past history is told, but our present, beyond some of the because I don't want to disrespect any other platforms, but just beyond some of the entertainment that is put out there. Black people were not a monolith, and I think what you've produced, if you look at everything that you've done, you have shown that we are not a monolith. Like we are just a beautiful people of diverse journeys, and so I just encourage you to continue to do what you're doing because we need it. We need it more than ever now, for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for bringing that up, especially in the context of what's going on. And
Mhm.
we're not I don't care if it doesn't exist in the government, but
Mhm.
Black history is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Black women ain't going nowhere. Our
Yeah.
stories aren't going anywhere. If we have to
Right.
braid it in our hair, put taps
Yeah.
on our shoes to communicate, it will happen. Trust
Yeah.
me.
No,
Yes.
that. See, everybody's seeing it. That's the gangsta.
Yes.
That's the gangsta. Forget all this professional stuff. All right, look, I'm gonna get you out of here, but I got to do this. It's like kind of just rapid question thing. When I was talking to my manager editor Takuma, he was like, "Man, just come up with some questions, some rapid questions, rapid answer questions, whatever I'm trying to say." And I was like, "All right, cool." So you'll appreciate this one. Harold's Chicken or Doc's?
What? Harold's.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Some people might rock out with Docs. I don't know what you're gonna. Hopefully, you say the right thing. Sox or Cubs?
Socks. I'm a Southsider.
Thank you, Stephanie Morgan. Now Davis. If you see this, I do not understand how you're a Cubs fan. But I do understand though. That's my girl. House music or jazz? And the reason why I asked that because you're a savant when it comes to music. So
I'm not a music, I would not say I'm a music savant.
you don't think so?
No, I love music,
Yeah.
but I would not put that term on it. I'm gonna go with jazz, and that
Nice.
doesn't mean that I don't love house music, but
Hmm.
I love jazz, and I love jazz like across the world.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when I think of house music and just, I mean, house music integrates so much of, various genres of music, including jazz. So, I mean, without jazz, there's not a lot of stuff that we don't have, including house music. So, I get that. Old school taste of Chicago or chosen few picnic.
Old school taste of Chicago.
Yeah, dope, dope. Jabot jeans or Guess jeans.
Um, I don't know. I had a Canadian tuxedo in second grade.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm gonna go with that. But like,
Wait, you had a Canadian tuxedo in second grade that was Guess?
it was a blazer. Okay, it was a denim blazer
Okay.
and jeans that had like little slits on the side.
In
And
second
I
grade.
wore I wore that outfit second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. And yes, it looked different as I grew taller, but
Yeah.
it was fresh. But I'm like, forget these brands. Like
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I
they're not
get it.
really giving me anything.
I get it. I get it. This is what I want to end on. And thank you for your time, and just being extremely transparent. There are like so many people around the world, but I mean, I've been paying attention, especially now what's going on in Chicago, and there's just so many people who feel hopeless, from top to bottom, no matter what side of town you live on, no matter what your social economic background is. They feel like the system has failed them. They feel like, in a lot of respects, the politicians have failed them, the people that they voted for. Um, what are your words of encouragement to them, and probably maybe even yourself, as you kind of maneuver, through the city, doing your best to advocate for those that can maybe not advocate for themselves?
I think that it's complicated. Where
Mhm.
I'm at right now, which isn't far from I think where I've always been, is checking in with, but also always recalibrating my own compass
Mhm.
versus watching the news and letting that determine how I'm feeling about the day or what's going on.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong, it's important to stay informed,
Mhm.
but I am not led by the things going on
Mhm.
in the world. And
Mhm.
so my compass, this is interesting because it all comes back.
It does.
Maybe it's me, maybe, but it all comes back in that my compass is not just about me being
Mhm.
able to buy new jeans or even buy a home,
Mhm.
but when I say my compass, it's like what's important to me and what's at stake for the people around me. So it's
Mhm.
not just a self-driven guide. It really is about like my people and who
Mhm.
I care about, from my family to my neighborhood to my community, my friends. Um, so I that's where I'm at. It's like
Mhm.
establishing my own compass, and that comes in different ways. Also, it's like all we got is us. And
No
when you
doubt.
think about it, that's always been the truth. We, as Black people, have explored that in many different ways. We have sat by
Mhm.
the door and listened and gone in to do the things the way that we want to do them. We have created our own worlds, our own businesses, our own
Mhm.
communities, and
Mhm.
that can be fragile, but like you got to try, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Take care of the people around you. And I
Mhm.
think now more than ever, that is true. So if Aaron calls and says, I'm starting this series, I want you to be a part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm down. If my
Mhm.
homegirl says, I'm coming over to teach you how to plant some arugula, yes, let's do it. Then I don't
Yeah.
have to rely on other people. If my
Right.
mother says, now's the time, JaSaun, my family calls me Jace, now's the time, Jace, to
Mhm.
tell Mayfair's story, let's
Mhm.
do it. So,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm at.
No, that's dope. I appreciate it. Where can people find you, find more about Mayfair, and all the other dope stuff that you're doing?
So for Mayfair, we're in a legacy phase right now. We're
Mhm.
not operating as a dance school currently. My mother retired, and with COVID-19, we needed to close those chapters to
Mhm.
prepare for what's next. And for me, that is telling Mayfair's story. So
Okay.
I'm working on a documentary.
Dope.
I don't have a release date yet. We're in
Right.
production, but coming soon.
Nice. Nice.
And we're on social media, but it's like find me and you can
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
Mayfair.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Mayfair as part of the Obama Center. Michelle Obama is one of our most famous alumni. And so there's a connection there. She's talked about us in her book. So
Dope.
we're out in the world. And then for
I love how you casually just drop that in there. Like, yeah, like the most influential woman in the world, just casually, it's
hey,
cool though.
the Mayfair sisterhood is
Yo, that is so dope. That
it's
is so
big
dope.
and it's deep. And
Yeah.
even for women who don't have the name Michelle Obama or JaSaun Buckner,
Yeah.
Mayfair alumni, we are out here and we are making things happen and we are connecting community, and it's really a beautiful thing. And then for me, yes, In Our Mother's Gardens
Mhm.
was on Netflix. It's not right now, but I think it'll be re-released. So
Dope.
ask about it, tell people about it. We have a social media presence. And
Mhm.
for my work, Swiping America is on HBO Max. A lot of my work is all over the internet, including vimeo.com/JaSaun. So that's where I keep a lot of my work, and at JaSaun's Vision on social media.